Chapter 7. A New Beginning. Daddy waited until the morning to tell Mother of Belinda's aborted wedding. She took it very badly, in fact, and was unable to come down for breakfast. It was a gray day, the clouds ceiling low and ashen with stiff breeze blowing toward the sea. Daddy thought we were in for a nor'easter, and we went out with Jerome to make sure things were securely tied down. Winter had been so mild this year since the last storm. However, as the day progressed, Daddy's predictions for it became more and more a reality. I went upstairs immediately to visit Mother when Daddy informed me she wasn't feeling enough to come down for breakfast. "She's not hungry at all," he added. "I'll have a cup of tea brought up to her. I'll take it." Belinda had already made plans to spend the day at Kimberly Hughes' home, where I'm sure she'd be joined by other bubblegum girlfriends who had nothing to do but hear all about the broken love affair with Carson. I could just imagine the exaggerations and histrionics Belinda would perform. She really enjoyed being the center of attention. In fact, she was so absorbed in her plans she barely asked about Mother. It nearly broke my heart to see Mother pale and teary-eyed and the redness around her eyelids. Her lips started to tremble as soon as I approached the bed. She reached up for me with her cold hand. "Olivia, what happened? Winston's making no sense. Why is the wedding off? All the plans were made, the guest list, the decorations, and..." "Please don't permit this to upset you, Mother," I said. "Drink some tea and get something warm in your stomach." "I will," she said, "but you must sit here and tell me all you know." The teacup rattled against the saucer precociously when she took it from me. She brought it to her lips and barely sipped, her eyes searching my face anxiously for clues as she peered over the edge of the cup. "None of us should really be surprised by these events, Mother," I began calmly. "We've always tried to protect Belinda from herself. We've always tried to keep her sins and mistakes buried." Mother winced at the word, and I stopped, realizing that not so vague reference to the premature infant that lay under the ground in the rear of our home. When you keep things hidden, when you lie and leave out part of the truth, you always risk being exposed and looking even more dreadful. That's what happened with Belinda. Carson found out about some of her past and indiscretions and got upset. She had been pretending to be so virginal and innocent throughout their engagement. The contrast between the illusions and reality probably frightened him. I paused, looking down at my hands, and asked, "Daddy told you about the engagement ring? What about it? I hate telling you these things when you're so sick." "It'll be all right. Tell me," she pleaded. "Sip your tea, Mother, please." She forced herself to do so. I saw the way that she closed her eyes and grimaced. It set my heart to pounding. "You're seeing a doctor today," I insisted, even if I have to take you there myself." "All right, Olivia, all right." "You were saying something about the engagement ring." She threw it out of the car window when Carson became upset with her lies. "What? You mean she..." She shook her head as if to shake the words out of her ears. "It's gone. He couldn't find it. It's like looking for a fish in the ocean." "Oh dear, dear. What will people think and say? That was such an expensive ring." "They'll get over it," I predicted, but she shook her head again, this time with slow deliberation. "No, it'll be like the Potter affair," she said. Mother was referring to the infamous story of Helen Potter, the daughter of a millionaire beer and wine distributor in Hyannisport, who, after she had been engaged to the son of a wealthy Boston builder, was discovered naked in bed with her closest girlfriend. They claimed it was all innocent, but the damage was done and the wedding plans ended. Helen was sent to Europe and eventually disappeared in the myriad of stories, some describing that she changed her name and headed to a Hungarian-born place. Her girlfriend went to become a doctor and lived in California, but the Potters became a persona when it came to social events and never recovered. Mr. Potter eventually had a stroke and died, with only his wife and servants at his bedside. It had become the subject of gossip and jokes, but parents keen about their social status often used the Potter affair as a threat to keep their sons and daughters within the confines of good behavior. It's nowhere near as serious as that, Mother. Everyone knows Belinda, knows she's impulsive and silly. What will become of her? In time she'll find someone else, I'm sure, I said, but not with any real conviction. Mother just closed her eyes and nodded. And then she handed me a cup and the saucer. You need to drink more, I said. I'm tired. Let me rest, Olivia. I'm going to go downstairs and get Daddy to arrange to see about a doctor. It's just my nerves, she said. It can't just be nerves. It's lasted too long. I started, my heart pounding. What are you saying, Mother? Neglected what? A while ago I noticed I had a small lump. It wasn't bigger than a pea. A lump where? Here, she said, touching her left breast. I mentioned it to Dr. Covington in passing, and he told me to come for an exam, but I just thought it would go away. Mother, it hasn't. It's gotten a little larger, and I'm on pins and needles thinking about it. That's why I can't eat and why I'm so tired. You're going to the doctor tomorrow, I ordered. She didn't put up any resistance. All right, but don't worry him. It might be nothing at all. As long as you go to the doctor, I said. I will. I rose and hurried down to tell Daddy. He says he was after her to come in. My God, she said nothing. I should have been more concerned with her failing health. As long as she's going to go now, Daddy. The doctor says it's better to bring her to the hospital immediately. I'll get her ready, I said, and hurried toward the stairway just as Belinda had come down. We're taking Mother to the hospital, I told her. She was half out the door. Oh, why? She had a lump on her breast. That's why she's been nervous lately. A lump? Why would she have a lump? Sometimes it's nothing serious, but many times it's cancer, I said. Cancer. She thought for a moment, then asked, what's going to happen? She has to be examined and tests have to be done. Oh, well, what should I do? What should I do? Do what you think you should do, I retorted and went upstairs to get Mother ready. Belinda went to her friend's house, but left word with Daddy that she would call the hospital from there and then come if necessary. The weather turned bad so quickly. However, we were lucky to get Mother to the hospital. The rain came in rolling sheets, and it was still raining hard when Belinda finally called. Daddy told her to stay where she was. That, I assured him, didn't break Belinda's heart. But it's really raging outside. Everyone was scurried about, agitated by the fierceness of the storm. Fortunately, Dr. Covington had gotten to the hospital just 5 minutes before we arrived, and was there to oversee Mommy's attendance. Dr. Covington had just turned 60, but still had a full head of what Mother called chameleon hair. In the daylight or bright lights, his hair looked amber, but in the night or subdued light, it looked dark brown. He had been our family doctor for as long as I could remember. A soft-spoken man of few words, he was nevertheless firm and decisive when he made a diagnosis or prescribed a treatment. He's got microscopes for eyes and a thermometer in every finger, I said. I remember when I was about 12, and I thought he was funny. You don't have to like him, Belinda. He's not running for popularity awards. I don't like him. Then don't get sick. Dr. Covington wasn't very tall, maybe 5'8", but I never thought of him as anything impressive and commanding. He was married with one child, a son, who had also went to medical school. Mother liked his wife Ruth, and she was a private person. Daddy and I waited in the hospital lobby, trying to distract ourselves to pass time. Then, finally, Dr. Covington appeared. Well, Winston, he began, as it turns out, Lenora's problem isn't so much with her stomach, but, as you know, something she's kept to herself for so long. I'm afraid of the consequences. She was afraid too, I believe, and that's what's given her the stomach problem. I'll run some tests, and we're going to do a biopsy immediately. In the meantime, I'll treat her stomach cramps, if that's all there is. What do you think? I asked directly, my heart thumping. Daddy looked unable to talk. It's best not to jump to any conclusions without laboratory work, Olivia, Dr. Covington replied. But there's a possibility of it being malignant, Daddy finally asked. Of course there is. That's why women should never neglect symptoms, Dr. Covington said. Daddy made a small moan. Let's not assume the worst. Daddy nodded. The weather's not letting up any. Looks like a rough storm, Dr. Covington remarked. Come back later, Winston. We'll be at the office should you need us, Daddy said. Good idea. Keep busy, Dr. Covington said. We had a terrible ride to the office, passing 2 accidents along the way. The storm didn't let up until late afternoon. Most of the day, Daddy and I kept busy. Has Belinda called? Daddy said. Not since this morning, I told him. Better she not be occupied, he said. Better she be occupied than in our hair, he said. When she hadn't called by 5, I called Kimberly's house. The phone rang for so long. Belinda picked up. I was just going to call you, she said quickly. She sounded out of breath. What have you been doing? Nothing, she replied. How's Mommy? Is she coming home tomorrow? Hardly, Belinda. She's going to have a biopsy performed. Daddy wants the 3 of us there before dinner, and then we'll go eat someplace. Can you get yourself over here within the hour? Yes, Bruce will take me. Bruce, who's Bruce? Bruce Lester, Kimberly's cousin. He's cute. And he's just a high school senior, she said. I didn't want to ask more questions. I was afraid of the answers. She arrived 45 minutes later and we all went to see Mother. She dozed off while we were there. I saw Belinda was uncomfortable with the sight of her hooked to an IV. Finally, Daddy decided we should leave. Once away from the hospital, Belinda rattled on and on about her day, describing her girlfriends, many of whom we hadn't seen for a while. Neither Daddy nor I paid much attention, but she didn't seem to notice or care. Everyone thinks I'm better off with Art Carson. Things worked out for the best sometimes, she chimed. Daddy stared at her, barely eating his meal. Right, Belinda, I said. You're not enrolled in school, and you don't have anything to do all day, I said dryly. She laughed. Don't worry, I'll have other prospects when I want them, she said with so much confidence it irked me. Daddy raised his eyebrows and then shook his head. Let's worry about your mother right now. It put an end to Belinda's babbling, for which I was grateful. I felt sorry for Daddy. He looked so much older and so much tired. No man ever looked stronger or commanded more respect. It was as painful and frightening to see him look weak and defeated. He poured himself some brandy, and he stared out the window at the gradually clearing sky. Belinda didn't go up with us to the hospital in the morning. She couldn't rise early enough, and both Daddy and I thought it would be better not to have her moping about as we waited for Dr. Covington. I've got her stomach calmed somewhat, the doctor explained, and she's eaten. How long before you have the results, I asked. Another day. I sensed he was expecting the worst. Why else would he want to confer with a specialist so quickly? We visited Mother, and who wanted to know immediately where Belinda was. We'll bring her around later, Mother, I said. What will become of her, she muttered. She'll be fine, I said. Of course she will, Daddy agreed. Mother nodded, but not with any confidence. Our eyes met for a moment, and she saw my true feelings. I couldn't lie, not to Mother, especially not about Belinda. Later on that day, Dr. Covington called us at his office late the next day. This time Belinda had come along with Daddy and me. She sat quietly. I'm afraid the biopsy was positive, Winston, Dr. Covington began. Is that good? Belinda whispered. A little too loud. I'm sorry, Dr. Covington said, looking her way, but no, it's not good. Dr. Friedman thinks we should perform mastectomy, followed by chemotherapy. When, I asked before Daddy could finish. We want to schedule her Tuesday in Boston, he replied. Daddy nodded. We'll move her to Boston later today. Does she know, I asked? Yes, said Dr. Covington. You told her, but she'll be mad, Belinda muttered. Actually, she took it rather well, Dr. Covington said. Your mother looked up at me and said, you should fix it. He started to smile and tears came to my eyes. That nor'easter the other day, Daddy said with a deep sigh as we left the doctor's office, wasn't anything compared to the storm ahead. We followed the ambulance that took Mother to Boston. and then we went to a hotel. When we got to the hotel, Belinda burst into tears. I'm just as frightened as you are, Olivia, and just as worried. I'm not trying to think about it. You don't care. You don't care if you think about it. Your brain is like castle compared to the little house mine is. I don't have much room in mine and not as strong as you are. I stared at her a moment. She was right, I thought. Let's not argue now, Daddy pleaded. We've got to look strong and cheerful for your mother. Well, stop picking on me then, Belinda moaned. I won't say another word. Eventually, Daddy gave in to some of her requests whenever they were on their way to the hospital. He took her shopping and gave her money. Later on, the surgeon told us that the operation went well, but the results and prognosis would have to wait until after the chemotherapy. The third day after the operation, Mother was more buoyant and alert than we've seen her in a while. See, he told us, I knew the doctors would fix things. After we went home, Daddy had hired a special duty nurse to care for Mother when she was brought home. For a while it looked like he even came through the storm. Daddy and I remembered the regular work, and we tried to pick it up. Every night we had our discussions about the future. Daddy promised to talk to me more later. Mother began her chemotherapy, which was the very beginning and quite devastating. She lost her hair and was tired. The house began to look more like the wing of a hospital. I almost didn't notice the first days of the spring, but Mother reminded me when she asked me to look at the birds and get some flowers. Our trees were full and green. Sailboats were frequently seen on the weekends now. I was taken by surprise when a young man, Samuel Logan, the son of a man who owned a small lobster boat fleet, came to visit Daddy. They spent most of their time talking to me. He was a tall, well-built man. I thought he was by far the best looking man who'd ever shown any interest in me. I think this is very nice how you work side by side with your father, he said. I didn't reply and he looked flustered. I don't mean packaged like some sort of merchandise. I mean to say you're a more complete person. I understand, I finally said. Good. So what do you say about having some dinner with us tonight? Excuse me? We're gonna have dinner. You're asking me to dinner? Yes, I am, he said firmly. It's not the biggest decision I have to make, I said. Then I'll come by at about 7. 7 it is, he said, clapping at his knees. I look forward to it. I watched him nearly stumble over himself in my father's office. He waved before he left. So he finally asked you, Daddy said. What do you mean? I began to grow suspicious. You've been matchmaking again? No, he said quickly. He asked me about you, and I said you might consider going to dinner with him. So he wanted to ask me out on his own accord? Yes, Olivia, he did. Stop squinting at me like that. Stop being so leery. When I went home that night and told Mother I was going on a date, she was happy for me. It put a little color in her face. Why don't you let me do your nails, Olivia? I'm good at it. I did Kimberly's today, Belinda told me. I never put nail polish on, I said. Well, you should. Men like the color. You need darker lipstick. I'm not wearing lipstick. Let's just try it. If you don't like it, you can wipe it off. All right, I said. She smiled like a devilish beguiler who had tempted me to take the first steps towards sin. I'll fix your hair, she followed, and we went to the bathroom to get a brush. Just sit down and let me do it, Olivia. For once, let me do something for you, she pleaded. I stared a moment. She looked sincere. Okay, I said, what's the difference? You'll see a lot of difference, she promised, and began. An hour later, I looked at myself with my eyebrows thinned and some rouge on each cheek and lipstick and my hair brushed and styled. I dared to think that I might be as pretty as Belinda after all. You have nothing nice to wear, she declared. Take one of my dresses. Choose the one that's a little bit tight around your rib cage, she whispered, and wear my new padded bra. I don't need that. I have nice enough dress. I showed her the one Mother had approved. It's a dark blue silk dress with a lace collar. Belinda grimaced. It's not very sexy, she said. It looks like a dress for one of Mommy's tea parties. I don't want to look sexy. I want to look decent and proper. Boring, she sang, and rushed out of the room and returned with a low-cut black evening dress. Try this one on, she said, with her bra. She held the garments out until I took them. I went to the bathroom to dress. It had been some time since I had been naked in front of anyone, even Belinda. I didn't want her measuring my breasts and studying my hips and waist. When I stepped out, she whistled. Is this Olivia Ann Gordon, my sister? Oh, stop it, I said, but glanced at myself in the mirror. I did look sexier than I ever had. It put a flutter in my chest. Did I dare go out in these clothes looking like this? I don't know, I said. Do it, Olivia. You won't regret it. Show it to Mommy and Daddy, too. I don't know, I said again. But I did go into Mother's room. Daddy was there sitting at her bedside, and they both looked up when I entered. You look absolutely beautiful, dear, she said. I knew I had the two most beautiful daughters, Daddy said. Any man would be blind not to notice you, Olivia. It's not too much, Mother? No, I think you look fine, she said. See, Belinda boasted. I did it. I dressed her. Which is why I'm not sure, I said, but Mother gave me an approving nod. Okay, I'll go like this. Where are you going, Daddy asked. I felt my chin drop. Oh no, I forgot to make the reservation, I cried. Mother actually laughed. I hurried out to call and hoped it would be no problem. I wanted us to go to the Antonios on the Point. Fortunately, they had no difficulty booking us for 7:15. All I had to do was wait for Samuel Logan. He was nearly 15 minutes late and apologized, claiming he got lost looking for our house. When I went up the wrong road, I got sent in lots of different directions. Belinda was standing next to me. This is my sister Belinda, I finally said. She nearly leaped at him. Her hand thrust his. Oh yes, I can see the resemblance, Samuel said. Olivia thinks she looks too sexy in one of my dresses, Belinda blurted. Belinda? No, she's fine, Samuel said, smiling at her. That's what I told her, Belinda said. We're late, I said, for our reservation. Right, said Samuel. Pleased to meet you, Belinda. Likewise, I'm sure. He laughed and we left the house. While we were driving, he asked me questions about Daddy's business and told me about his Logan Enterprises. I asked him, "Do you have brothers and sisters?" "No, my mother died when I was young and my father never married." "Sometimes I wish I were an only child," I muttered. He heard and laughed. When we got to the restaurant, we ordered and ate. As usual, the food was delicious. I know I drank too much wine because I could feel the heat in my neck and face. Samuel dominated most of the conversation. He told me about his travels and how wonderful he thought the Cape was. "How about you?" he said. "I haven't traveled that much," I said, "but I do like it here also." "Exactly. I knew from the first time I laid eyes on you that you and I had a great deal in common." Even with too much wine in me, I raised my eyebrows in surprise. What did we have in common? I had yet heard anything significant. I had to admit that he was personable, and he seemed mature for his age and well settled. "Do you like sailing?" he asked. "I do, but I'm not good at it. I'm a good passenger, though." "Perfect," he declared. "I'm good at sailing." He reached across the table and took my hand. "I'd like to take you sailing tomorrow. Maybe we could pack a lunch." "I don't know," I said. "My mother's not well and they might need me." "I'm sorry about your mother. I hope she improves." "I'll call you in the morning, okay?" "Well, okay," I said. "Good." He held onto my hand and I let him. I heard a familiar voice, the voice that need only utter a single word and a single syllable to set my heart racing. It was Nelson Childs coming down the aisle, holding the hand of a tall, elegant-looking brunette. "Olivia, how nice to see you," he said, pausing. "I'd like you to meet my fiancé, Louise Brandon." "Louise, this is Olivia Gordon, a friend of mine," he said. And he put too much emphasis on the word old. She extended her hand. "Pleased to meet you." "Likewise," I said. "This is Samuel Logan." "I know Samuel," Nelson quickly said, and the two smiled at each other like co-conspirators. "You do?" "Aye, we tipped a few days together." "At least one too many," Samuel said. "Hello, Louise, it's nice to see you again." I looked from him to them with surprise blooming like a rash on my face. "I hope you'll both be at my engagement party next week." "And how's your mother, Olivia?" "She's doing the best she can," I told him. "Well, we don't mean to interrupt. Enjoy and hope to see you soon. It was nice meeting you," Louise threw back to us as they continued to the table. "Aren't they a nice-looking couple?" Samuel said, admiring them. "I'm tired," I said. "It's been a long day. I have to look on my mother." "Oh, sure, let me get the bill." Samuel did all the talking on the way home. He looked even more dashing and mature than ever, and it irked me that Louise Brandon didn't seem properly fit on his arm. How could I ever have competed with such a social star? "So I'll call you about 10 a.m. if that's all right," Samuel said as soon as he pulled in my driveway. "What? Oh, yes. I had a wonderful time, Olivia. I really did," he said, pulling to a stop. "I hope you did too." "Yes, Samuel, thank you." He leaned over and dropped a quick kiss on my cheek. "I'm looking forward to talking to you tomorrow." Once again his boldness took me by surprise. I only could nod. Cape Cod was famous for its weather, famous for its storm that could sweep in and sweep out, all in the same morning. No wonder Samuel Logan liked it here so much, I thought, and went into the house flushed and overwhelmed by his energy and determination. Someone had lit a fire under him, I concluded. I only hoped it was me.